I said to them, we've got to do something about this problem. And they said, we agree. And so the rabbi called the radio station and pulled the ads off the radio station because the rabbi knew the businessmen that were sponsoring the ads. The bishop of the Catholic Church organized his people. He had the largest number of them, and he said, we'll do what we need to do about this. The Episcopal bishop, the metropolitan of the Greek church, and the president of the area of the LDS church says, can't happen. He picked up the phone and called the governor. The governor answered and said, we will not allow it to happen. Wrote a letter. The radio station kicked the man off of the station. Don't mean to have anybody kicked out of where they are, but if they are wrong, we have to engage, come together in reconciliation, and determine that we're going to do something about the wrong that's being done. And in short order, people from Hidden Lake, Idaho, went on back to Idaho and left Ogden alone. I heard the other day that there are those who are drifting back in. And can I suggest to you another principle of engagement is diligence. You can't just start and run. This is a word from my own upbringing. You can't just run peace the way. You can't just do a little bit. You have to remain vigilant. Take on the task, and then do everything within your power. Prepare as if it all depends upon you. Remember, it will not always be safe. Keep in mind that all of us are affected by whatever affects any one of us. Martin Luther King summed it up. Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. Diligent about what you do. I come to a close. I've been engaged in the Utah community for a number of years. I've been here since 1972, working to ensure that this community is made livable for all of us who live here. Let me just interject in passing since I brought that up. I was down at the Salt Lake shelter the other day. Bumped into a couple of young men who didn't look like they ought to be at the shelter, and I said to them, why are you here? Why don't you go get yourself a job? Get yourself a place to stay. And the two young men I was talking to both pulled out of their pocket a copy of their paycheck stub that showed they were working 40 hours a week, but not making a livable wage. A livable wage will allow you to buy food, clothing, shelter, and transportation. A livable wage. Can you imagine working 40 hours and being paid for 40 hours of work and not making enough to be able to get your basic needs met? Well, since I've been here, we've decided that we're going to help bring about change. And since we're going to do it, we start with the laws. Get the right laws on the books. And I believe that for the most part, we have most of the laws on the books that we need. We still got to do something about health care for everybody in Utah. Utah still has not decided that it's going to expand Medicaid and the health care for the very poor, 400,000 people who live in our state. So we've still got something to do about that, and it's a legal matter. The legislature, the governor talked about it last year. It's going to come up again. But we've got to do something. Secondly, we still have work to do to ensure that everybody has an equal opportunity to a good education. Are you aware that there are some of the high school students in our state who are counseled to just learn a trade, to just do what you've been doing and not go to college. And many of them take the word of their counselors and then don't prepare to be a functional part of their community. So we got to do something about education. But we also have to do something about political balance. And I know I'm in a hotbed of a difference of points of view, but can I suggest to you that it is the two-party system that brings us to a place that the debate is healthy and we're able to get more done. So then let's do what we can in terms of the political system. And then lastly, I want to suggest a personal commitment that each of you ought to take in terms of engagement. When I'm done here today, go and get your lunch. Eat as much steak and lobster tail as you can find. And when you're done eating, then go back to class and learn as much as you can learn. And when you're done, report home, wherever that is, this afternoon or this evening. Watch the late night news at 10. 10:30. Crawl in your bed. Get you a good night's rest. And then about 3:30 in the morning, wake up. Spend some time getting yourself together. Work on you. Read something where it'll be quiet in your space if you wake up at that hour. And when you worked on yourself and gotten yourself to the place that you are now convinced that we can make a difference, then get up and get going. Get up and go and do something. Put away all the excuses. Forget about all of the dangers and the hindrances. Set some clear goals and pursue them with energy and excitement. And that'll make life worth living. Somebody asked me yesterday, I was speaking at St. George at Dixie State University, how come you're not angry? You've been through all of these things. Why are you not angry? Because I believe all of us have a responsibility to stand tall, to do our part, and blaming others will not get the job done. Become friends with some of those that are not like you, that don't believe as you believe, that don't hold to the principles that you hold to. Become friends with them. And then thirdly, take some proactive action. Introduce a bill, write a letter, make a telephone call. You'll be amazed at how people change. I do marriage counseling, by the way, and I always counsel the couple that's planning to get married. I say to the man, you forget about her and you just work on you. And I say to the woman, don't try to change him, he's too old. You just work on you. And so we can bring about changes, although there are those who are on the opposite side. But we do it with a clear goal in mind. We do it with education. We help people to understand that there's a reason we want to do and bring about these kind of changes. Back in the 1980s, Congress passed the shortest law that they've ever passed that I can recall. It was just 2 brief paragraphs on the top of a page. And they defined as the 3rd Monday in January as a legal public holiday. And then Utah was one of the 7 states that said that law does not apply to us. And so I got introduced, a friend of mine introduced the bill in the state legislature and said we need to pass our own law. And at the end of the session, we were soundly defeated because there were those who were so opposed to that holiday, they didn't want anything to do with it. I spent the next 12 months, I traveled from St. George to Logan, went from one end of the state to the other, educating state legislators about the value of that holiday. And at the end of the year, there was a debate held on Channel 2. Rod Decker was the host, and I was one of the debaters debating one of the opposers to what I stood for. One of our problems is that we can't say to many of our students, for example, that if you get a degree in chemistry, here's what it will mean for you and your family for the next 40 years. We've got to make those connections between the kind of education that a person gets and what their goals are, what they're trying to pursue. Malcolm memorized the dictionary. You know the value of memorizing the dictionary? There are only 4 people in the history of speech making who could make a speech as well as Malcolm X could, because Malcolm knew the shades of meanings of a word. And when he used them, he could use them with authority and with power. But he could make the connection between having no formal education and being able to then be a productive member of the society. And so our own government responded to Malcolm by saying, we can't have you leading us in the direction that you want to go. We'll take Martin. And so the choice was made between the two. So we inspire people by giving them a reason, by showing the connection between whatever formal education they get and that which their goals will be, and then show them how life can be better. The better educated you are, the more broadly educated you are, the better your own personal life will be. It'll get you a job. But if you don't have personal sense of worth and value, it won't mean much. Yes?
There's so many different, problems out there or things in society that we can try and change. How do you discern where to start or what has the most priority?
Is there some benefit to resolving this problem for me personally? Because if there's no benefit for me personally, I'm not going to give it 100%. So I ask that question first. Then the second question is, what is the benefit and the lasting effect of dealing with this problem versus dealing with that one? Healthcare versus education, for example. If people are not healthy and well enough, you can have all the education you want, and it won't matter much. So healthcare then becomes a priority in that sense. So you look at what the value is for us, and then look for the opportunity. My father used to talk about a groundswell. Mrs. Rosie Parks was not the first African American to refuse to give up her seat on the bus. She was not the first one, but she was the first one that the community said, we can stand with her, because she's got a good, positive reputation and so forth. And so the groundswell, and as a result of the groundswell, Malcolm Martin and H. Rap Abernathy were invited to a meeting. They were new in town, and they were drafted to lead the Montgomery Improvement Association. So you didn't got to wait for the ground to swell. By the way, when I grew up, every adult 6 months older than me owned me. They could discipline me. Well, but you can't do that today. Leave my kid alone. So destruction of the family is one of the problems. The other problem, though, in that Detroit, Michigan area is that we built an economy on one industry. And whenever you do that, you set yourself up for falling hard when the industry goes belly up. So when the automobile industry went up, the steel mills shut down. The steel mills shut down. You couldn't make wheels for automobiles. When you couldn't make wheels for automobiles, you didn't need tires anymore. So all of those businesses interconnected, but depending on one industry. So I think both of those are the problem in that Detroit area. And fortunately, Utah has diversified its economy sufficiently enough that we remain one of the lowest unemployment and one of the strongest family communities in the country. Yes.
You talked about one of the really good ways to have some education is to be informed. And so, what do you think are some really good ways to stay informed, especially like if you're a student going to school away from home where you're not really familiar with like politics?
Okay, what are some great ways to stay informed? You live in a generation and a time that you have all kinds of ways of knowing things. Facebook, and Twitter, and all of those other social media things. I grew up with a typewriter, and you had to have a whiteout to change anything that you was doing. So you've got lots of ways that you can be informed. Let me suggest, however, that you use those social media for good instead of for just trashy kind of stuff. But I'm not interested, for example, in how many times you got to go to the bathroom today. But I see that on Facebook all the time. Oh, I'm going to the bathroom now. I'm going to leave the dog in the living room. But use it for constructive, meaningful ways. Use social media for that. That's one way to do it. The second way to do it, I still believe in handwritten notes and letters. I can guarantee that people who will not open their Facebook account will open a letter that they get in the mail with their name on it. Guaranteed. They got a Facebook account, they haven't opened it in the last week, but if I send them a letter and their name is on that letter, they like to read their name. So they'll open that letter. The governor will respond to anything you write in your handwriting. If you type a letter, he may open it. But if you write it with your own handwriting, he'll read it. So we can we can communicate and effectively make a difference. Now, of course, the modern social media allows us to communicate faster and in a broader sense. And I think we ought to use that, but we have to be careful how we use it. Remember that whatever you put on social media is always on social media, no matter how many times you delete it and erase it. I was on the Salt Lake County's Board of Judges to decide whether employees who were disciplined were treated fairly or not. And we had a case where a man and his employee, the man fired the employee, and the employee says it's all in emails, and so we confiscated the guy's computer. We had authority to do it. Confiscated his computer, and everything on his computer had been erased. Everything related to that had been erased. We hired 2 computer hackers, experts. It's another word for hacker. We hired 2 computer experts, and they reconstructed every email that he had sent within the time frame that we were concerned about. They were able to get messages that he thought were long gone. Long gone. So remember that whatever you put out there, it can be retrieved by somebody. Our time's up. Thank you for listening. I appreciate